much for inviting me here. So I don't have any funny pictures or stories to present to you today. What I have is a promise of 380 million investment in rare disease research. So I hope that will be sufficiently interesting for you to listen. So what is ERDERA and what it is about? ERDERA is a partnership co-financed by the European Commission that has an ambition of improving the health and well-being of over 30 million euros that live with rare diseases in Europe by making Europe a world leader in the rare diseases research and innovation. And so we have three main goals. We focus on the acceleration of diagnosis, the acceleration of the development of the effective therapies, especially for the conditions with no approved options, but also on better understanding of the impact of rare diseases to be able to influence and give the necessary proofs to the policymakers. I told you about the 380 million. So this is actually the picture about the different budget that we have. ERDERA today is more than, it's almost 180 partners that encompass the whole rare disease research ecosystem. So we have the funding bodies, we have ministries, we have research performing organizations, universities, research infrastructures, of course, but also patient organizations and industry and small and medium enterprises that are part of this consortium. ERDERA represents 37 countries, and as you can see here, and you will see that in the moment, in a little bit more details about how the budget is being, how the structuring is being done. But as you can see here in this green part, this is the budget that we directly invest in competitive and in-house research to accelerate the developments for rare diseases. And the rest of the budget is dedicated to different supporting services that I'm going to speak about also. So how ERDERA is structured, it has been organized when thinking about the sustainability and how we can imagine that after the 7 years of the program, we can construct a real sustainable structure. So there is a very important component, which is the basis, which is the international capacity alignment, because we really build very strong connections to the national capacities that strengthen what is happening actually in ERDERA, but also that can then leverage whatever ERDERA is being developing and integrated into the national ecosystem immediately. We also have a specific part on the underrepresented countries and of course the global dimension through the collaboration with the International Rare Disease Research Consortium. But as you can see here, the main component of ERDERA is of course research. And this is composed of the two parts, the green and the orange one, where we have the direct investment in research. The green one is about the competitive funding, and I'm going to speak about the different schemes that we have. And the other one is about the in-house research, where we foster the clinical trial readiness of rare disease, but also accelerate the diagnosis and therapeutic development. All those research activities must be supported by different types of services that are offered to the rare diseases community. So it's not limited only to the partners that are participating in ERDERA, but really to the rare diseases community at large. And as you can see here, they encompass specific data services, expertise services, education and training, as well as the acceleration. And this is something that I'm going to describe. Of course, this must be the overarching coordination and strategy is extremely important. We have a very strong governance and advisory bodies to make sure that ERDERA is actually advancing as expected. So this is just to show you how those different elements are actually connected together into the clinical research and innovation ecosystem. So first, we finance research, but the financing of research is not sufficient. So we have specific services that are supporting funded research. We are talking here about, for example, the mentoring services. We also have, and you will see, once we launch the different competitive calls, we have specific adapted criteria that are adapted to the oriented to the needs of patients, but also to the specificity of the calls that we are launching. Through the different supporting services, we provide the different tools to the community. And then through the acceleration hub, we can do the the additional support, exploratory due diligence, and move also the projects towards a public-private collaboration. So let me speak a little bit about what actually we are offering. So I'm going to start with the funding opportunities. Really, I'm going to go fast through it, but don't hesitate to come afterwards and ask questions. As I mentioned, we have different types of funding opportunities, and these are actually 4 different parts. The first one is joint transnational calls. We also have the so-called networking support scheme, and we are going to launch the multinational clinical trials call. And we also can set up the direct collaboration opportunities when it comes to this clinical research network, the orange part where we have the in-house research. What is very important is that what you need to remember is that the whole ERDERA is being driven by the patient at the center. And that means also all the research activities. And already in the previous program, the European Gender Program on Rare Diseases, we developed together with patients a specific guide on patient partnerships that allowed us, and we are developing this further by providing specific funding for patient organizations. But the idea is really that the patient organizations are part of the research activities in all the research activities that we are implementing. So let me start with the joint transnational calls. These are being launched every year at the end of the year, so usually announced in November or even in October, with the official opening in December. It's a 2-stage evaluation process. We are talking here about the multinational research project, so it means that there has to be a minimum of 3, sometimes 4 different research teams from the countries that are eligible. The patient organizations are also eligible for funding and they can participate as partners in the project. Unfortunately, we are not yet there where patient organization could be a leader of or coordinator of the research projects, but I hope that this is something that can evolve. And as you can see here, we have this 2-stage evaluation, meaning that actually if you go to the second, if you are invited to the second stage, you have about between 30 and 50% to get financed. This is just to show you what were the different topics of the joint transnational calls in the previous program, and to just simply demonstrate that actually our goal is really to be as transversal as possible. So we are not focusing on specific groups of rare diseases. We are focusing on the acceleration of the diagnosis, natural history studies, social sciences and humanities, therapies development, and so on. So there are quite just a few exceptions that we may have when it comes to the eligibility. And as you can see here, we are supporting different types of medical domains, and usually this repartition of what we finance is actually aligned with how many proposals in a specific domain we receive in the as applications. The other one I wanted to mention, because it's very important and it's coming, it will be opening next year, is the clinical trial call. So we are currently in preparation. We have the committed budget of 30 million euros from the European Commission, and so we expect that we are going to also enhance this budget also through dedicated national commitments. We have now 2 different working groups that are working on the operational parts of this call, but also on the thematic part. But I'm announcing it already now because I know that usually the preparation for a clinical trial proposal, it takes time. And so obviously this will be multinational. So it requires some additional preparation from the applicants. The third funding opportunity we have is the networking support scheme that should open this month. And so here we are not financing research, but supporting networking. So we are providing the grants of 30,000 euros if you want to organize an event, a workshop, gather your community. And we know from the previous experience under the EJPRD is that this networking support scheme is really helpful to gather the communities, to share knowledge, very often also to have the first gathering of different patient organizations, clinicians, researchers together around some specific rare diseases where the community has not been yet structured. So it's really valuable, and many of those projects are actually driven by the patient organizations. Now, when it comes to the different supporting services that we are offering, and you are going to see some of the, I would say, the usual suspects. So we, of course, collaborate a lot also with the European infrastructures like EATRIS or ECRIN. And together with them, we have created the dedicated mentoring services. that are now offered to the community, especially in the current call at the second stage, where the projects are invited for the full proposals. So just because we are talking here about the reproposing, I was informed that out of the almost half the projects that went to the second stage are also focusing on the reproposing. And so this mentoring service is really offered to the community, so you have the possibility to reach out and ask for it. And we also have a dedicated additional supports where you can learn by yourself, which is the Innovation Management Toolbox, and that represents a library of more than 400 resources that are constantly updated, and it is organized in a way that you have different use cases, things that or you can enter, let's say, the information or find the information in a different way. We also have already under the EJPRD developed a clinical trial toolbox and methodological support dedicated more to the clinical trials, multinational clinical trials. This has been done together with ECRIN, but also groups of methodologists. And again, some specific materials are available on our website. And if you require this kind of support, we can also put you in contact with the dedicated experts. I mentioned that we have also data service hub. So we are improving also the data ecosystem, and already under the European Joint Program on Rare Diseases, we have created so-called the virtual platform, of which the goal was to connect the different types of resources that were not necessarily interoperable and were not speaking the same language and ontology. So that was the idea. So this is what we have done. So we decrease the fragmentations of those different resources through the harmonization and let's say, flexible standardization and common methodologies. So what does it represent today? The virtual platform represents now 45 different resources. For example, the whole orphanet is considered as one resource. We also connect the registries of the European reference networks and other types of resources, as well as develop dedicated biological pathways. So this is something that really serves the community, where you can go and search for the information about the different rare diseases and then extract and reuse this information for research. The last thing I wanted to mention is the acceleration hub. And I think that it's important, before talking about the acceleration, it's also important to mention the Rare Diseases Moonshot Initiative, which is an initiative that brings together different types of stakeholders and is fostering on public-private collaborations and how we can use and leverage the power of public-private collaborations for the rare diseases research. So this group has produced also a set of recommendations, and it is in line with those recommendations also that we developed in ERDERA, the Acceleration Hub, which is divided into two parts. The first one is the ATMP Technology Accelerator, and this is where we work directly with the industry and also academic partners to accelerate technologies, make them standardized and regulatory compliant, so like that they can be then released to the community and accelerate and decrease also the cost of the development of the ATMPs. And the second part is the Public-Private Partnership Accelerator, that should also be open now in the coming days and weeks, where we are going to ask if you are interested for this kind of support. We will be evaluating the projects that would be interested in this kind of in the support. We do, as I mentioned, this kind of exploratory due diligence and employ the necessary means to help you to accelerate your project and eventually go into the public-private collaboration if this is something that would be the most suitable. But before I finish, I wanted to mention one last thing, because I consider that there is a challenge. And so this is the part where also in ERDERA and in many other places we struggle, meaning that the investment to move the project, let's say, from this exploratory due diligence into the public-private collaboration or any additional investment is needed. So the part of the de-risking and so on. So there are today, I noticed that in the rare diseases ecosystem and beyond, there are some different models that are being employed. So in our case, for example, in the joint transnational call of this year, we had some specific topics that were dedicated, for example, on the replication of the preclinical studies to validate exploratory findings that can move forward and de-risk the project. But we also have the EP permit. So it's another partnership that is also doing this kind of fast-track validation program that helps on the risking. And then, of course, we have the remedy all that is also helping in the acceleration. So I would say that my last message is that we have to do things together, especially when thinking about optimizing funds. We have a lot of funders that are involved in those three initiatives that are exactly the same. I consider that what we should do is to really work together, because maybe at the European level, we can expedite a real powerful accelerator for the innovation in rare diseases research, but also in other domains. And with that, I would like to thank you very much.